Hello and welcome to Mercedes-AMG Petronas Motorsport's headquarters here in Brackley. We're trying something new for the Pure Pit Wall analysis this week. Andrew Shovlin and I are here live on Facebook to answer all your questions about the British Grand Prix and the strategies that were involved. Shov, I know you're going to do your best to answer everyone's questions, so please do comment below and ask away. Shov, what a fantastic weekend and a great result for the team. A 1-2 that perhaps no one really predicted going into the race.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Certainly the last 3-4 laps of the race, it was just incredible. Everything was going off. But no, just a fantastic day. It was great to see Lewis up there, one of our home Grand Prix, and so many fans there. It was just a brilliant event. And
such a great job done by Valtteri as well to get that 1-2 for the team as well. So let's kick off our questions. Lots coming in, so thank you for that. The first one comes from Jennifer Lacey on Facebook saying, with the 5-place grid penalty given to Valtteri, did you think he stood a chance of a podium yesterday, given the fact that Ferrari and Red Bull have been so strong during practice and qualifying? And then she goes on to say at the end, Valtteri was epic, which I think we all agree with. But yes, what were his chances, did you think?
His chances of getting on the podium were pretty good, certainly getting as far as P4. It all hinged on could he overtake cars like Vettel or Kimi or Verstappen on track. We knew that we'd be able to get through the Force Indias and get past Hulkenberg, which would get you up to around the sort of P4 region. But it was great to see him delivering the plan the way that he did. We'd sort of talked it through in the morning, what he could achieve, and he knew that those podium slots were possible, which was really why you saw him just so determined to not let that slip away.
Fantastic performance and fantastic questions, so thank you very much, Jennifer Lacey. Another question's come in on Instagram, F1_memes_UK. Thank you for getting in touch. So we've got our lovely graphic here from Pure Pit Wall right at the start of the race, and the question is about just that. How many strategies do you go into at the beginning of a race?
Well, if you go back to the beginning of the weekend, we might be looking at 3, 4, 5 strategies even, because at that stage you've got to evaluate the tyres and look at how they all respond. As we came into this race, as with most, you've got a prime strategy, and we did what we wanted to do with both cars. So with Valtteri starting on the soft, going to the super, just doing that one stop, and with Lewis it was super going onto the soft. But we've always got a plan B. You hear teams talk about that on the radio, we're going to plan B. Well, the plan B would have been a 2-stop here, and that was in the event that we couldn't make the tyres last long enough, and then we would have had to run the extra set. But we would have been also watching what the whole field does. We would have covered off Ferrari if they went to a 2-stop and it didn't compromise our race, just because it drops the risk. But by Sunday, it's normally 2.
Fantastic. Great question, because I'm sure a lot of people probably think that. What is going on the pit wall? So thank you for that, F1_memes_UK. So let's talk about Valtteri's strategy. I know you've touched on it. We've had a question in on Instagram again from Rishit Vimat Dalal. How was Bottas able to perform surprisingly well on the softs and almost match the performance of others on super softs when others couldn't really do that with the soft?
Well, I mean, he did a great job. The balance of the car was right. He was also looking after the tyres early on. And the soft it's a stiffer rubber. It's a more durable tyre. The super obviously has a very good lap 1. You saw that in qualifying. But then it does start to degrade a bit. And it was really just that combination of tyre management, having the balance right. And, he was driving brilliantly that weekend. And as people are going off on the super, he could just put the lap times in. The whole strategy was based around that, though. It was really going for this sort of overcut where you run longer than anyone, you get some clear air, and you can try and recover a bit of track position.
So we see here that you brought him in on lap 32, but Ben Goddard has been in touch on Facebook. Thanks, Ben. Should you have pitted Bottas 2 laps sooner, so on lap 30, considering that Lewis did more laps on the super soft with a heavy fuel load? And he's also saying that, sorry, Shov, but he thinks, I thought you left it a little late to catch Raikkonen.
It's a good question, and one that we'll be looking at that this week, because we look at all the things we could have done differently. We're always trying to improve on what we did. But it's a great question, because at that stage of the race, Valtteri, as you said, was still doing good times, but he was getting to the end of his tyre life, and we could see the last 2 or 3 laps, he started to get a bit of degradation coming in. If you look what was happening behind him, we had the pit stop gap to Verstappen, so there was no real threat there. Verstappen wasn't going to get that position back. And we were trying to pull Vettel in. And Valtteri was doing everything he could, but his tyres were at the end of their life and he just couldn't do the lap times we needed to get Vettel. So we were watching it closely. We were certainly having the conversations 2 laps earlier that Ben's alluding to. And it's also this balance of the earlier you go, the older your tyres are at the end. And it's trying to get that balance of how many laps do you need to catch up the car and attack them versus making sure when you get there, you've actually got much faster tyres than Kimi would have had in this instance. So right now, I'm not quite sure what the answer is. I think, if anything, we would have gone sooner, definitely not later.
Okay, so you're going to be doing some studying on that this week.
Good
to know that, isn't it? That you're going to go back and double check that. So let's now have a little look at the overall tyre strategy. We've had some questions in again. Thank you so much. So many of you getting in touch. Thank you for taking the time to join us. Morten Fjeld Nielsen on Facebook has asked, did you miss a trick by not having Lewis let the Force Indias back past on the last lap? They could have beaten Vettel. That's what Morten thinks.
I'm not sure that they would have done. It's a difficult one because they were at the end of their tyre life. Vettel had done that stop for his tyre. Even if we'd not crossed the line before them. So obviously when Lewis crosses the line, every car then crosses the line and finishes their race, irrespective of what lap they're on. They don't do any more. So what we're asking here is if Lewis had pulled over, let the Force Indias have another lap to attack Vettel, but they wouldn't have exited the pits ahead of him. Vettel was on fresh rubber. They were on old. I don't think they would have got past him. It's a very interesting question. I have to say, at the time when everything was going off, we weren't thinking that strategically. Perhaps it hadn't occurred to us. But the cars were so far apart, you couldn't have predicted what was going to happen. Vettel was going so slow at that stage, but it's a pretty devious thing to do as well. I think it'd be a little bit rude to try and release some cars to take even more points off him. But it's a great question.
Morten. Maybe Morten needs to come and join your strategy team as well. A great question, thank you, Morten. George Sava has asked on Instagram, were you at all worried about your tyres when the Ferraris started exploding and of course then Red Bull pitting Max and using a great hashtag explosive ending, because of course we saw Max coming in, but that was more a precautionary stop. But when you saw the Ferraris, any worry there?
Maybe not so much on the first one. And then when you see another, and then you see Verstappen,
memories of Silverstone 4 years ago.
It definitely does worry you, because at this stage you don't really know what's caused the failures, and even after the race, it's not immediately obvious, or it won't be immediately obvious to Pirelli what's caused them. They've got to get the tyres back. They've got to do a lot of investigation. So in our world at this time, Lewis was quite happy, enjoying the race. He'd been looking after his tyres. He decided to have a go at the fastest lap, so you saw him putting in some purple sectors, and then shortly after we had the tyre failures. So what it did make us do was just get the 2 drivers to calm down and bring the cars to the finish.
Slow down.
So you saw last few laps, they backed right off. They were seconds off the pace, just trying to get the cars back.
But you're right though, George, explosive ending. What a way to finish the British Grand Prix. So let's move on to some extra questions. Fantastic. Dan Long has been in touch on Facebook. Did the time delta between the 2015 and 2017 cars surpass what you were expecting with the new downforce of the cars this year? Because Silverstone's obviously one where it's quite easy to see the difference, isn't it?
Yeah, we were. I mean, it's a bit more than the 5 seconds they were talking about, but now we're getting into the season. People have been bringing developments, but there's also a lot of other factors like how hot is it? It's quite cool at Silverstone.
Yes, very
there wasn't
cool,
a lot of,
actually.
lot
Fairly
of
cold.
sunshine. And the tyres work well in those conditions. They're very consistent, so you can do a lot of fast laps on them. You don't get much degradation. When it's windy, it slows the car down. Also, Pirelli bringing that super soft tyre gave a lot of grip in qualifying. So they were a bit quicker than they were targeting. But I think the real thing is Silverstone is one of the tracks that just suits these new cars brilliantly. It's a nice wide circuit. There's some massively quick corners, like over 300 kilometres an hour. So 200 mile an hour corners. And the drivers are taking some of those flat. They're right on the limit. And both of them said you can really feel the loads now. There's a lot of G-force. It's actually quite, they're quite hard to drive the cars now, which is great because that's what we wanted. But they're also having a lot of fun because the thing with racing drivers is they just like going fast.
Well, absolutely. And if you were there at Silverstone, I think you will have agreed with me that it was spectacular to watch. Absolutely phenomenal stuff, this race. And talking of Silverstone, Silverstone's the area. Simon Taylor says, do you think it helps motivate drivers more when they're at a home circuit? Or does it add increased pressure to deliver the best result for the fans? And obviously, home race for Lewis this weekend.
Yeah, that's a really difficult one because you get some drivers like Lewis who just thrive on the crowd being there to support him. It's amazing because when he sets a good lap time, you can hear the crowd roar and it really adds a lot to the energy. And Lewis just feeds off that. He's got a fantastic record at Silverstone. He's just won it time and time again. And it's definitely a positive for him. But on the other side, you can get some drivers who actually find it difficult to perform with all that focus. There's a lot more media attention. There's the expectation of all the fans. And I think it depends very much on the mindset. But as you say, for Lewis, it's all positive.
Absolutely. And what about you? What about the mechanics, the engineers, and people that we don't see necessarily? How does that work for the home race?
I think when you notice it is when you're going in and you see all the fans wearing, like for us, Mercedes gear. They're all there supporting Lewis and supporting Valtteri. And you start to feel a real responsibility to deliver the result. These guys have worked hard to buy the ticket, to come to the race, to watch it. And I think for us, it puts a lot of pressure on to make sure we deliver the right strategy. If Lewis is going to get a chance to win it, we make that happen. Also for the mechanics, there is a bit of extra pressure because the last thing they want is for the car to break down because of an issue and leave hundreds of thousands of disappointed fans going home unhappy.
Well, I doubt there were any disappointed Mercedes fans yesterday with a fantastic one
yeah,
too. All done there. Another great question from Warren_S_Nell via Twitter. Warren asks, were there any updates that you brought to the car that significantly improved it this weekend? We've heard a lot about different updates coming with different teams, but was this a weekend that you focused on updates?
No, very, very little really. I mean, we were great from the performance point of view, really good advantage in qualifying. But that was more down to just getting the car working well. Lewis was really comfortable with it. Valtteri wasn't so happy with the car in qualifying, but as you saw in the race, he was really at one with the car and getting good lap times all throughout the race. But the basic spec was very similar to what we had in Austria. And in Austria, we did bring some updates. But here, where you've got races 1 week apart, it's very difficult to get a lot of changes onto the car. And the other problem is if you can do it for Silverstone, we'll always say, well, why can't we have it 7 days earlier in Austria? So there's always that temptation to bring it sooner. But what you would want there is to get the benefit of the update kit for 2 races, which is why a lot of teams would have targeted Austria. Okay,
interesting. Thank you very much. Great question, Warren. So this morning, what was it like? We've got a question from Ro Mason on Facebook. He wants to know, do the team turn up at work this morning buzzing, or is it all heads down to prepare for Hungary? Obviously, just over 10 days still to go for that.
It's a bit of both. I mean, you can do
winners T-shirts galore this morning, I have to say, when we arrived at the factory.
There are a lot. I think that was one of those races that's just an enormous positive for the team. Everyone's been working so hard, from the first race of the year, even before that in testing. And the thing with this, championship battle that we've got with Ferrari is that there's an enormous amount of sort of motivation to try and keep pushing because we know that they're flat out in Italy trying to beat us. And when you get races like that, you've got to enjoy the moment, but it doesn't stop. We don't take a day off and relax. We're pushing very hard and just trying to get through to the break where people can actually have a bit of well-earned rest.
Well, I can't believe it. Yeah, halfway through the season. Shav, thank you so much for talking us through the British Grand Prix. What a result. A 1-2 for Mercedes. 1 point now separating Lewis Hamilton and Sebastian Vettel. The fight will continue in Hungary. Not long still to go for Hungary. So I think you better go and do a bit more research on what happened at the weekend. Thank you for joining us. And of course, you can watch the video back on Facebook. So keep an eye out for that.